Give us a real clap. There you go. Dads know best. Shit, my dad taught me
How to clap.
how to clap.
Yeah, I've not get the clap.
That's a
something I'm
different
trying to
thing.
avoid.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a different.
My dad might tell me that.
And we're gonna jump right into partying with hockey players. Go ahead on that note. Yeah. So, welcome to Shit My Dad Taught Me. We have 2 guests in studio today, which is actually a first for us.
Oh,
you
nice.
guys will be the first father-son duo.
I've never been someone's first before. It's exciting.
And still waiting on your first, Mike?
Well, yes, exactly. I haven't been anyone's first because I haven't been anyone's. Yeah.
One
I'll
day,
be
bro.
honest, you won't
One
be our
day.
last.
One day. So I want to introduce everybody. We have Brian Ehrenworth. We have Mikey Ehrenworth.
Yes, that's correct.
Boys, we kick it off with a little ChatGPT intro. We
I've
talked
been
it
nervous
before.
about this. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Find out I'm on the run from the cops or
internet,
something.
sir. Yeah. So
Does it have pics in ChatGPT?
Oh, God.
and I made some too. We'll show and tell later. Brian and Mikey Ehrenworth together are part of the Frameworth sports marketing team. They are North America's leader in framed memorabilia design, licensed autograph, custom framing, auctions, and event activations since 1992.
Yeah.
Wow. And Dad started, yeah?
I started, out of my father's company. So yeah, he retired. I started a new company, kind of in the same genre, and then we've gone from there.
Yeah, because it was something with, I'm going off memory, but something with the moldings, right? Like it was
He was,
extrusion or aluminum or something.
He was the largest wholesale custom picture frame company in Canada at the time, or one of them. But his big claim to fame was he had the aluminum patent on the aluminum picture frame, which was huge in the 70s. And that patent ran for 17 years and then ran out, and prices dropped and everybody benefited except my dad.
That's typically what we get called on podcasts to talk about is aluminum patents.
Yeah.
It's a really exciting
sounds
topic.
super
Yeah.
exciting.
We got a lot of
get into
people
this
that write
in
in
this
about that.
Yeah.
And then it goes on to say, with exclusive rights to autographs from stars like Sidney, Crosby, Carey Price, and more, they serve fans, athletes, and corporate clients through custom memorabilia products, a Toronto showroom, and a robust digital storefront at frameworth.com. So far, so great.
It makes it sound good. I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I cut out most of the Mikey shit.
Yeah,
didn't
please,
wanna
thank
throw
you.
you under the bus. in
I
front of your
owe you for
father.
that one, yeah.
no
We
problem.
still want your dating life to have a chance.
Yes.
Says nice things about Brian, though. Says
bet.
Brian brings decades of experience in athlete services, product sourcing, and what runs behind the scenes in pro sports memorabilia. Mikey infuses a little bit here and there. He's also known as the third favorite child.
Oh, yes.
So
Somehow fourth, because I think my dad considers Sidney Crosby one of his
Yeah.
kids. Yeah.
so forth. And what's funny is it cited it off of his mom's Facebook page.
Oh, no.
So,
I told her to remove that. That's so
it says
frustrating.
Lori beside it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's her.
okay,
That's
yeah.
her. She does that.
So I have so many questions, and the stuff that we talk about is obviously we're talking to you because we love, talking about being a father and family and those kind of things. But I want to start with the business. So Dad comes up with this cool patent. You run with that for a little while, going from that to, if you're watching this podcast, you'll see a bunch of Frameworth sports memorabilia behind you. And I can almost guarantee if you've got something hanging on your wall that is a authentic licensed piece of sports memorabilia, it might have come through Frameworth Sports. How did that happen, man?
Well, out of the when my father retired and sold the company, I started a picture frame company, which was a small little company, and we had one contract, which was we still have today, which it was that we took from my dad's custom framing operation, which was framing all the gold records for the record industry in
Right.
Canada. So anything that went to the artists for platinum or gold came through our company. We were the official supplier of those. And then from there, we just developed the framing side of things and my love for sports. I just started framing things up. We were actually a picture frame company for interior designers, et cetera. That's the way we started with that one contract, doing a small amount of business year one. But then when I started taking the framing products that I wanted for myself for sports memorabilia, hanging them into my office, and realized that, hey, you know what? Other people like that too. So we started shifting more of our product lines into sports memorabilia. And then one of the big components was where somebody, an interior designer, would come in to frame a family photo and bitch about the fact that it was $100 and very expensive. If you threw a $15 Doug Gilmour autograph in that same frame and charged $150, they'd think that's a real steal. Quickly realized that that's the path to go. So we started shifting pretty much into 100% sports memorabilia. So
there's also a kind of a flashier story that I like to tell. It's like more of the lore of Frameworth, and I always try to get you to tell it. We used to have a podcast together called The Sign Off. It's no longer running, but I always wanted you to tell this one as kind of the genesis of sports marketing and sports memorabilia, where we used to sell. I wasn't around in the industry at that point, but we used to sell a lot of lithographs, like artists' prints, and then we would print out a limited edition of 50 or something. And one of the big selling features was that the artist would always sign the lithograph, and that was one of the big selling points. We did one. It was in, I think, the 70s with Borje Salming
and Daryl Sittler,
and realized that we had them sign it as well, thinking that was just like secondary. They want the artist signature, but we'll have the player sign it, whatever. And they sold gangbusters, and that was kind of this light bulb moment of saying, maybe we don't even necessarily need the artist's signature. We can just focus primarily on the athletes. And it was another few years before we had like redirected the company. Obviously, it takes some time to change, but that was kind of the first.
Well,
moment.
in fairness, that was my father's concept. He did that in the late 70s. Was the first of that kind where the artist, the print was about the player on the ice. I remember, because I was a young guy then, and Daryl Sittler and Borje Salming were my heroes, and they were actually in the office signing these things. And that blew me away. But it was years later that we redeveloped that, not even realizing it until I found a photo of my dad holding up the picture with Daryl Sittler, which, by the way, Daryl Sittler is a client and a good friend right now. And we talk about that moment. So I didn't realize what we had
like
there.
the biggest moment of his life. I think the only thing that would come close was the time he scored 10 points in a game.
Yeah.
But that night that he held that signed photo was like, that's what he remembers best of his career.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. When you're at the peak, the 10-point night one, I remember that. The first time I met Daryl Sittler was at your place as well too, when we were putting that 10-point piece together for back in the day. But that's what's so cool about your place now is, like, as a fan, every single time I went there, I met somebody. And the one that sticks out to me is actually Eddie Shack. And I know you were a good friend. Tell me about Eddie.
Eddie was actually my father, when he retired, didn't want to be at home all the time, just hanging out with my mother. So not to say they didn't love each other, he just had to get out. So I had an office that we set up for him, and he'd come in and do the payroll every couple of weeks. But Eddie used to come in, love my father. Eddie, in a sense, I was starting the business. I was very busy at the time. Eddie used to sit in my dad's office and just shoot the shit with him for an hour at a time. And Dad loved him. I didn't have that much time for Eddie because he'd go on and on. But when my dad passed, Eddie just kept coming back, and then he'd come into my office, and I got to love the guy. I mean, the stories that he had from back in the day. And so he would come in, and he was one big HR violation, right?
Yeah, he passed that issue off to me.
Weren't they all, though? Weren't they all?
But he was like the progenitor of that, like the number one HR violation of Eddie. And we all, weirdly, he kind of got away with it. And I know that's like what you say in hindsight. It's like no one really cared about it. But legitimately, he seemed good-natured enough that some of the things that he said that definitely wouldn't kind of pass the sniff test these days.
Over the top. There was one woman in our creative department, and Sandra, and she
I remember Sandra.
She was a religious girl, and pretty straightforward. And
Let's
Eddie,
see if he can manage the HR things here himself.
Eddie would walk by her, and the F-bombs would be flying, and he'd make comments about her or whatever, and I'd have to, every time he left, I'd have to go to her and say, "Are you okay with Eddie? Because I can, we can stop that. I just wanted to protect myself and the company in case there was any." She said, "No, I love Eddie. Don't worry about it. I'm cool with that." But Eddie, eventually, he told so many stories in the office. I said, "Eddie, you got to get those down. You should make a book." He said, "Well, I did a book years ago, but nothing like that." I said, "Let's do a book." He says, "No," he said, "Why don't we do a book? You do a book." I said, "I don't know that much about books, but
You literally can't read or write.
No. But we put a book together, and it was a bestseller. He went on the road with me, and what an experience. And he wanted to do it a year later. Or the publisher, which was Ken Reed, or not the publisher, the guy that wrote the script, Ken Reed from Sportsnet. And he said, okay, so we'll do it a year from Christmas. I said, no, we're doing it this Christmas. He says, well, it was April. He says, you can't put a book together. I said, I'll get the book done if you can write the script. I was just worried Eddie was getting up, and sure enough, he passed away 4 months after we did the tour. So,
Jeez.
yeah, so we got it. And he was really proud of that book, too. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I think this would be a good time. Theme of shit my dad taught me. But my dad will kind of downplay it a little bit. Like when you talk about things like timelines like that, it's a very frustrating thing to work with him in a lot of ways because timelines don't apply to him. He's such an ideas person, and I've kind of
go time all the time.
And I've molded my identity and my kind of work persona against that. Trying to kind of be like, listen, I love the ideas, but like, let's slow down. Like, let's take some time. Let's try to put everything in place, more of an operations thing. So when I heard, we're going to publish a book, and not only are we going to do it for this October when the publisher is saying next October, but it's like everything has to start right now. It's such I guess kind of like a sight into the way that he runs his business and his operations. He always taught me that there's a way to get things done. It doesn't matter. Like, it's not even a shoot for the stars thing. It's like a shoot for whatever you want, like scatter shot, and let's make sure it all lands. It's been a tough thing to try to keep up with him a little bit, but it's almost a gift and a curse in the sense that now anytime I'm faced with a problem, whether it's a timeline issue or just an issue of whether something can get done, there is that part of me that's his voice in my head saying like, there's a way. Like
Mikey,
there's always
just get
a way.
shit done.
Just get it done. And when it doesn't get done, it's kind of like you're pretty hard on yourself because you're like, there was a way. Like there definitely was a way.
Yeah.
And I'll say this now because we're like removed from it, but like when we're in the middle of a project, like not that our relationship is contentious, but there's a lot of debate back and forth about what we should be taking on and what we shouldn't. And I feel like we do kind of balance each other out pretty well in that sense.
Yeah, I agree 100%. In fact, just recently, and I have my old school way of thinking. He's got his new school way of thinking. And you know what? This goes back to my father and I, because and I get emotional, but my dad was...
He also taught me not to cry on podcasts.
And my dad
Safe
was
space,
the kind
bro.
of guy that when I first started with him, I was 19 years old. I wanted to work for him as a sales rep. And I did it over the summer as a summer job. Loved it so much, wanted to quit school. So I had 1 year of university under my belt. And probably the biggest fight my dad and I ever had was me quitting school and working for him. And we didn't talk for a week. And then finally said, okay, you can work for me for 1 year, but if it doesn't work out, you go back to university. And then I became, I worked as a sales rep for him. And within about a year and a half, I was his best sales rep. And when the sales manager decided to retire, I wanted that job because I was, in my mind, I'm his best sales rep. And he's, oh, you're too young. And so I said, no, I'm not, but I'm your best sales rep and I know how to sell. And he goes, well, yeah, but you can't lead the other people. You're too young. So I realized I couldn't get his respect until I did something on my own. So I went out and opened a bar on my own and came back years later. Yeah. So it worked out, but I remember we would fight, and I would try and take credit for how good the company was. And he'd sit there and almost laugh at me and say, no, I started this company. This is the way it was. By the end of his reign as the head of Frame Guild, which was the company's name, we were both trying to give he'd say, you've done an amazing job. And I'd say, Dad, I wouldn't know anything without you. So it flip-flopped to, hey, I know more than you as a young kid. I'm smarter than you. You don't get it. To at the end, hey, Dad, you're the best, and vice versa. It was amazing. Yeah,
That's awesome.
What's the biggest takeaway with Dad? What's the biggest thing he's left you with, taught you? If you had to summarize it?
I get emotional with my dad. He taught me how to treat people well, look after them. To this day, somebody will come into the showroom that was there early in my career, buying a couple of frames. you know, and they'll come in now when we're a lot bigger company and say, hey, remember, the guy just did it the other day. Hey, I get a call from the front desk. So-and-so's here, wanted to say hi. Guy that came in when nobody else was coming in. We're doing $600,000 in total sales year one, and he'd buy $100, $500 worth of stuff. Comes in last week, wants to say hi. Always have time for that guy. Always. And I think that's respect people, treat them well, and your business will grow that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you guys have done, I mean, if we could probably spend the whole episode just name dropping. I mean, I know.
My dad would love that so much. Oh my God.
So I know, because obviously we've done business together and I've been to your place. Like, I think that skill transfers up and transfers down though, too, right? Like giving somebody time, appreciation, audience, that's a skill at all levels. And actually, that's probably my biggest takeaway from the day you introduced me to Eddie Shack is all of a sudden I was the only dude in that room and he wanted to tell me all the stories, larger than life and whatever. And I remember when he walked out, that was in the boardroom where you guys did the podcast. He walked out and I'm like, and if I'm honest, I knew who he was, but I couldn't, recite stats or but I knew who he was. And he walked out. I'm like, that guy's a celebrity. Yeah. Like he just had that. He gave you that focus, and I'm like, that's a skill, man.
Eddie was way ahead of his time. He was one of the first guys out there that promoted himself over and above the game. Pop shop, commercials, slogans that he made up, take care of the nickels and dimes and the dollars will take care of themselves, or whatever that line was. And
a song that was #1 on the charts until, as he says, Nancy Sinatra's "These Boots Are Made for Walking" knocked it out. Like, he'd tell that story all the time. But "Clear the Track, Here Comes Shaq" was like a song that made #1 in Canada.
Yeah, because he was, what was his nickname? They called him the Entertainer or something like that, right? Yeah,
Eddie the Entertainer.
Yeah, that's right. Crazy. So, I mean, obviously, with your first athlete being Salming and Sittler, I mean, that's royalty right there. But
it's not a bad place to start.
Not a bad start. So we can chalk that up to you being a people person, having your dad's support, and then being a great salesman, right? So how does that go and turn into all these names we can drop? Like, give me some of the highlights there.
Well, it started primarily as buying autographs from other autograph dealers that were, had the connections and using those within the framing to make the products that I want. And I always say this, if I had to write a book, it'd be called Fortuitous, because everything seemed to happen at the right time frame. We opened the business in 92. Guess what? Blue Jays win the World Series. The fan radio station started. Doug Gilmour comes to Toronto and is hot as fire. What a time to open a sports memorabilia business. Right?
I got the 92, 93 balls right behind you there.
Amazing.
Well, there you go. Yeah. And so one of the first thing that kicked off was something that I did for myself, which was a World Series program and I went out and got all the Upper Deck baseball cards and framed it up, and we all had to cut all those things out by hand back in the day.
So cool when you do those. Probably my favorite thing you do.
And I liked it for myself, so I built it for myself, and then I sent one to a friend of mine over at Labatt's who gave me a little bit of business for the offices and that, and I said, here's something, and he said, well, he phones me a minute he gets it and says, Brian, how much is this? And I said, no, it's a gift. He says, no, the other people in the office want some. This is October of our first year. And he goes, I said, okay, well, I gave him a really good price, and by Christmas of that year, they ordered $200,000 worth of that one item. And I was only doing $600,000 that year. So that's really the catalyst to move me into the sports memorabilia, the biggest catalyst, because corporate became a big deal. I found out that if you build something that a corporation wants, they gave them out to every bar and restaurant in the country, right? And so I realized that if they didn't have a budget for it, but they'd find one if it was good enough.
The fortuitous thing, though, is like, especially if you're talking about athletes specifically, the one I think about the most, the moment, I mean, I was young at the time, I think I was in grade 7 or 8, but when I realized that so much of the industry, because he had me working there since grade 4. Like, it was legit child labor, questionable. Like, I don't know. I remember having to leave a sleepover, and the parents were like, "What? Like, why do you have to go?"
You
I'm
weren't working. It was daddy daycare.
It was daddy daycare. Yeah, exactly. I was like, I have work tomorrow, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like this little 4-year-old with like a lunch pail. But at that point, I still didn't really understand the industry. When I did realize how much of it has to do with being fortuitous and almost linking itself to gambling was when we had signed Mike Weir. And it was, everyone knows Mike Weir now, but and he was obviously somewhat of a household name back in the day, but prior to him winning the Masters, he wasn't, which is when we signed him. And then maybe you want to go into that story about
well, I mean, you know,
Bell,
I've
and that's all
told
he
it
had
a
back
million
then.
times, but that's probably the biggest turning point in our history because I had an agent, Dan Cimarroni, come into my office. He was in the sports business with IMG, which was obviously one of the biggest sports agencies in the world, and he said to me, Brian, I've got this golfer. I know you do a lot of hockey stuff, but would you be interested in marketing this golfer? He's going to be, he's a great Canadian golfer. He's going to be a great one. And I said, Dan, I know you obviously talk about Mike Weir. He had just won a tournament in Vancouver. I said, I don't know. We do a lot of hockey. I don't know if there's a market for golf, but if there is a market for golf, I need some time to develop it. So if you want to do a deal with me, let's shake hands on it. I need exclusive for a time period at least to see what I can do.
Because it looked super attractive, right? Like 5'9", balding, doesn't have many sponsors, hasn't won an international tournament yet.
You can't go wrong.
It was a no-brainer.
Actually, but I was a avid golfer at the time too, so I said, okay, we'll give it a shot. So we give it a shot. Literally within 3 weeks, he wins the Masters. And I go, oh,
That's
my
pretty
God.
good.
That's amazing. Yeah.
I immediately went out and bought a big screen TV thinking this is going to be huge. And it was, because he was the first Canadian, first left-hander to win the Masters ahead of Phil Mickelson at the time, who was a big star. So,
And was so much fun to watch.
and I ended up getting a phone call a couple of days later, said, Brian, from Dan saying, IMG wants a meeting downtown. They're going to screw me on this deal.
Yeah.
I said,
Backtrack.
we only had a handshake deal. They're going to screw me. I start developing products that I can impress them with and take them down to this meeting down on Bloor Street. And I go to the boardroom and all the agents are in there, like Dan Cimarroni, Pat Brisson, J.P. Barry. They were all there. There was like 6 or 7 guys. I shit myself. And I said, you guys are going to, how are we doing? And he said, no, we're doing fine. We're going to have this deal. We think you're the company to deal with. He said, we just want you here because it's got to be a different deal now. I mean, we got to be a different structure. He's not just an also-ran guy. He just won the Masters. And I just have a big sigh of relief. And we start talking for about an hour. And as I get up to walk out the door, Pat Brisson says to me, he was an agent with IMG at the time. He says, by the way, we've got this kid. He's going to be the next Wayne Gretzky. And I said, oh, yeah? Who's that? And he says, his name is Sidney Crosby. He's playing in Shattuck St. Mary in Minnesota now, but he's going to Rimouski next year. And are you interested? And I said, well, what's the deal? And he said, we want a $50,000 minimum guarantee against sales. He was going to Rimouski. I don't offer players that kind of money today go in the NHL. Not some I do, yeah, some I don't. And that was against 1 year sales. I said, I didn't know if I could sell one product. I didn't know who the kid was. I heard his name, didn't know.
Well, back then he was getting the shit kicked out of him. He
Yeah.
2 concussions already when
Is
he
he even
started
gonna
with
make the
Rimouski.
NHL?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there going, okay, the only reason I said yes was I was afraid if I looked like a small-time company, I would lose Mike Weir.
Yeah.
So I said yes. Well,
You said yes to Crosby because you were worried about
About
Mike
Mike
Weir.
Weir.
Mike
Yeah,
Weir.
yeah.
Now, in fairness, Mike Weir was huge for us that following year. I think we did close to $1 million worth of sales in his product.
Awesome.
But Sidney Crosby is, what is it now? 92 or sorry, that was 2003, 2004. So he's been with us for over 20 years, and every year is a better year than the previous year. He's just an amazing guy to work with. But Mike Weir led to Sidney Crosby, fortuitous, as Mikey says.
Yeah.
Crosby
And
and Yager are my 2 most favorite. Like, I'm a huge Penguins fan. Like, you guys have done, I think it was like 9-10 years ago. I grew up in Thunder Bay, so I grew up with all the Stalls, like same high school. So I had like a bunch of the Stalls Canadian jerseys, and then when Jordy went to Pittsburgh, like he got me him Melkin and Crosby stuff. So I went to you guys, and you guys
Wait,
actually,
did Sidney sign stuff for you?
no,
We got to call
bought-
him. We got to call him. He wasn't allowed to do that. He had an exclusive.
No, my wife bought the Crosby one off of you
Oh, okay,
guys.
okay.
But
Good.
but Malkin signed her jersey like on my wife, like
That's
because
awesome.
he got us to Jordy got us down to like go meet a couple of the players or whatever. But I brought you guys like 10 jerseys. You guys framed all 10 of them for me
Oh,
like
wow.
9-10 years ago. And one of the guys came out with like a I was gonna bring it and put it on display here. One of the Stanley Cups, like the replica Stanley Cups, and you guys are like, we don't normally sell these unless they're like autographed, and then you guys like auction them or do whatever you do with them. I've had that in my basement for like 10 years.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So it was super cool.
We were definitely a Penguins household for several years. There still are.
Yeah.
Toronto, obviously, you have to be a little bit as well. But
Well, I grew up as a Toronto fan. But,
yeah. But I was always like back in the day, like Wayne Gretzky's
Toronto royalty in your office back then too. Yeah. I got that. You got me one of those. You see the Sidney one hanging up there?
yeah,
You
yeah.
got me that.
Yeah.
That was one of the ones. I can't remember
That's
how
a
many years
favor
ago.
I can
but
do for the odd person because I don't get Sidney to do that very often and that's one of the reasons he's still with us is I know what he's like. I don't like to impose. I don't ask him for free tickets or any of my players. I don't ask for unless I'm going with his mom and dad to a game or whatever. So we'll all go together. But yeah, so
he's a
just
god in our house.
respect and know him.
And just to recap that, the book is fortuitous and it has to be out by Christmas.
Christmas, that's way more time than he's ever given me.
It's July now, so we need to get to work.
If my dad asked the day that this podcast was going to come out and said that book has to be out by then, like I would not put that past him. It's like, 4 weeks from now. Good.
We don't
We don't want to announce the book until it's done.
Yeah, we got time. And then Dougie Gilmore, because I have to ask, because obviously we're Leaf fans as well too. So that relationship has probably spanned how many years now between you and him?
Well, it was 92 or 93.
Yeah.
And the funny story about that was one of the things that I did because of my love of sports was I tried to get the custom framing work from Maple Leaf Gardens, which was on Carlton Street. And so I used to drive my car up there, park right in front. The police would never give me a ticket because they were all not owned by Harold Ballard, but they didn't want to piss Harold off. So they never knew who was parking that car in front to run in, who would have the balls to park right in front on Carlton Street and run in there. So they rarely would give anybody a ticket. So I'd run in there and then I'd get a little bit of framing here and there. And then that's a whole other story about how we developed the auctions within the building and that with Jeff Newman, who's still around and good friend. But one day I parked outside and I looked across the street and there was a bar for sale, or I guess a restaurant was going out of business. And I looked at it and I said, geez, that would be a great location for a sports bar. So at the time I knew Bob McCowan, who I still do, and Bob was kind of a friend at the time, just not big friends, but I got to know him. And I said, if we could get a couple of celebrities, like All-Star Cafes type deal, and I phoned him up and I said, do you know Doug Gilmore, who was God in Toronto at the time? Let's get the three of us together and maybe a few other players and I'll build the bar because I had that experience from when I left my dad's company back in the 70s. And we put a bar together called Garduni's across the street. And Doug was a partner initially in that until the Leafs came in and said, you can't do that because they had a marketing deal with him in his contract or whatever. Anyway, so that's how I got to know Doug. And once again, we've been friends ever since. He calls me up and I'll see him this weekend in Prince Edward Island. Mikey and I are going out for a big golf tournament and a lot of the Leafs are there. And we've remained friends and business associates because his stuff is still some of the biggest selling stuff that we have.
I bet.
Yeah,
three or four Leaf captains, Sittler, Clark, Gilmore, are three of the best selling items that we continue to have until the Leafs win a cup. And
so you're
so
saying
it'll
they're
be
still
good
gonna
for
be
a
the
while.
biggest-
They're still going to be the
They're gonna be
biggest.
your biggest draw
I'm
for the
not
next
worried
15
about
years.
those guys aren't worried about it.
Gonna need to ride that out for a minute. It's incredible how those three specifically have turned their careers into being, I mean, they're royalty, right? Like they're Leafs alum, they're at everything. I see those guys, like their schedules must be insane still.
Yeah, they're terrific. Yeah, well, Mikey gets to know all these guys too. I'm doing all the talking.
No,
but
I mean, you have the better stories. I just learn about them from you.
Yep.
One of the guests that we had on our show, I don't know, like episode 5 or 6 or something, he was actually golfing at Redtail like last week or a week and a half ago, and he sent me a video, and Clark was getting dropped off in a helicopter to Redtail to go golf. I guess whatever they were there for. There was like some special event going on. But he, instead of driving there, he took the helicopter, got dropped off, and everybody's like recording it as he's getting dropped off there.
What an entrance in a helicopter.
See,
if you guys got out of a helicopter, would you do that thing where you like tuck your head down?
100%.
That's always what I want to do.
And like arms up as you're walking.
Yeah. All the pilots are like, you don't, it's not going to, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
You're not tall enough. No, I only have like 8 hairs left. I'm trying to hold those fuckers in.
Yeah.
Well, these guys, one of the things about those 3 guys in particular and the others is they keep themselves relevant because they're at these events, because they're showing up here and they do the public appearances. And a lot of those guys are making more money now doing that stuff than they ever made playing hockey.
For sure. Especially from way back then.
Yeah.
And here's the difference. And I got to know Wayne Gretzky many years ago, and
we're gonna have to have like a bell. Can we get a bell every time he drops a name?
Thank God we're not doing shots. Every name drop.
Miles, you're gonna have to put a photo of each of these. The photos exist every time he says it.
We have a license
like
for Getty images.
Around the whole outside, it'll be a picture of
pictures of him with them.
But one of the things that the difference is, so it's great players of all time: Wayne Gretzky, Beliveau, Gordie Howe. Okay.
Oh,
but
too.
One of the things that, like, arguably makes Wayne still the top selling guy in hockey right now. Still, his stuff goes for more money than everybody else. And the reason for that, he still stays relevant. Sometimes in a negative way, like recently, but that's a whole other story. Yeah. But he keeps himself out in the forefront. People say, why is he doing broadcasts on TV? Because he wants to be there, make himself accessible, etc. And I think that's key, because Gordie did that a little bit, but a lot of the guys just faded out from the public domain, and that's why the kids don't know who they are. Like, ask a kid this day, who's Gordie Howe? Well, he might have heard the name, right? But they all know Wayne Gretzky. Yeah. Everybody. And if I travel around on cruise ships or something and you say, what business are you? I'm in the hockey business. Oh, I don't really follow hockey. Well, have you heard of Sidney Crosby? Some will. A lot of them will, but surprisingly not that many. But if you ask, oh, have you heard of Wayne Gretzky? Oh, yeah, I know that guy. Right. So yeah, you got to stay relevant.
Which is so cool. And the ones that get me are the guys that really balance it out too, right? Because obviously to get to that level in sports, you've got to be all in on that. Like, there's just no, you don't get to be the great one by showing up some of the time, right?
Right.
Like, but some guys figure it out. So my Wendell Clark story is my family and his are members at the same golf course, and I see him golfing all the time.
Do you also take a helicopter to the golf course?
So listen, it's so hard to book it, Mike.
Yeah. It's because Wendell's always got it booked. I
get so nervous under the blades, and so
plus the girls are a little bit afraid of it.
Listen, it's Wendell Clark. I don't want to upstage him.
Yeah,
okay?
of course.
Yeah. So I see him all the time, and the thing that I'll tell you about him is every single time he's with his family. He's either got his wife walking off the 18th, or he's got, I think he's got a few kids, but I've met one of his sons anyways, and he's walking off the 18th, and like he's sitting there, and then they got the big table reserved.
I feel like we got a stalker here.
Yeah. Well, but here's my point is you got a guy that like keeps that kind of schedule and is helicoptering into events and all that, but then he's like a dad too.
Yeah.
And that's the coolest, right? And you're on that list too, man.
Well,
like
you got anytime I want any one of those 3 guys, I just make a phone call and they're in within 2 or 3 days to get some stuff signed. So I don't have to plan a 2-hour signing every 4 months, et cetera. They're just always available. And then we do some, Dougie will need some things for a charity function. And that's the way I operate, is that I don't charge him for stuff like that.
Yeah.
He does me favors, I do him favors, and that's the way we built the business.
But doesn't that kind of make sense that they would be able to balance that and to continue working so hard? It's like you always see these guys in places. It's like you don't get to the level that they were at in the NHL without being incredibly dedicated, incredibly hardworking. And it's that old saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. Once you retire, that energy doesn't go anywhere.
100%.
Similar to like you find a lot of ex-addicts, they put themselves into work or working out. It's like that energy has to be thrown into something. They were addicted to hockey and now it's addicted to business. So they're always going to be there at the drop of a hat. They're always going to be looking for their next venture. And that is probably maybe a healthier way because you're not degrading your body to the level you were when you're in the NHL. But yeah.
And they probably love those kind of things, right? Because like they love business. Like they're smart guys. Like they love that shit. The part they probably don't like as much is like when they're out in public and like you're absolutely getting hounded by people.
Yeah.
And you don't really get that private life. But like in business dealings and stuff, when you make a call and like, hey, can you come by for a couple hours? They're probably like, man, this is exactly the shit I like doing.
Exactly.
Right?
I'm assuming that once this podcast drops, once this one goes live, I'm going to be hounded on the streets quite a bit. So I'm getting prepared.
Congratulations,
for it,
bro.
Not
25 to 28-year-old blondes, blue eyes.
That's your demo, right? Prime demo. Yeah.
And so then that
shit with daddy issues.
Mikey is recently single. We did talk about that.
That is true. Yeah.
So then on that note,
Ladies,
too, Ryan,
can you get a close shot of my face?
Yeah, that's nice. Mustache looks good today. Zoom in, boys. So I got to ask you about your wife then, man, because you and I have been friends on Facebook for a while.
Yeah.
I love the way you use Facebook. I feel like you use Facebook the way that Facebook was supposed to be made. It's like, here's the family on vacation, Polaroid. Here's the trip to the cottage, Polaroid. Like
with like a 500-word essay describe, like captioning it. It's
really descriptive.
Yes.
Like how Facebook, I think, was supposed to be
once
made.
every 3 months.
Yeah. So how do you do that, man? How are you running the businesses, raising kids, being a good husband?
Well, you know what? It's funny because my wife, Lori, is a beautiful woman, and we've found our like kind of roles to a large degree. She worked hard as a flight attendant and then managed the children, which I didn't have as big a role in. She was always there for them. I was busy building a business. And now we do a lot of traveling. We're 41 years married, so
congrats.
It's great, and it gets better every year. But it's all about the family. So we raised the 3 kids, and I'm so proud of them because they all get along so well. I can't say something about one of them without negatively without the other one saying, "Hey, Dad, that's not the case," or stepping up for each other. So
he's always trying to talk shit about the kids.
Yeah.
Like, you really have to keep them.
Like, so how often
they won't let me.
All right, just trying to vent.
So when I'm there, so people see me on Facebook, and so my wife is completely opposite. She doesn't post anything, and she gets mad at me when I post so much. She says, "Hey, everybody knows what you're doing all the time." I love to travel. That's my passion. So when I take a break, we're gone, and we're all anywhere in the world. We'd love to travel. When I come back, I'm 24/7 in the office, at least for the last 5 or 6 years. If I'm home on a Saturday, Sunday, get up, I'm in the office at 6:37, and I'm there even on the weekends. Like I'll work 30 days straight. Then I come home and we, go out for dinner, we do stuff. But then I'll take some time off. So every time I see somebody like yourself I haven't seen for a while, I say, "Hey, I noticed you were traveling and I saw you in Spain, or I saw you you're at the cottage." And yeah, but the 30 days in a row that I was in the office kind of makes up for that. So work hard, play hard. You got to have that. I always had to have that carrot at the end to say, okay, I can work 30 days straight. Then I get pretty burnt out, and then I'm gone for 2 weeks and enjoying myself and kick back as much as I can.
There is kind of a dark side though of staying so. It sounds like I'm leading to a joke. I'm not of staying so publicly available. And there's a weird story that we have. You're the owner of a company. You're very publicly announcing every time you're going on vacation. A few years back, we were going on a family vacation. So that's myself. That's my dad. I think one other member of management was on vacation at the same time. We had a flight planned that was going to be about 8 hours or so. We take off, and when we land, my dad and I immediately like compulsively checking our emails, making sure everything's okay. My dad turns to me, he's like, why are we like, what is this $50,000 wire? Like, why did we, like, what did that go for? Do you know what this company is? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I guess it would go to like a social engineering scam where people had recognized that dad was on vacation. They had made an email address that had mimicked his name. They had sent a message to the controller saying like, "Hey, this is urgent. I need you to send this wire to this location." And the VP at the time was like, "Well, if Brian's saying it, then let's let that go." let it go. Thank God we were able to claw it back and draw it in. But this was kind of prior to that. There's like that scam that goes on, that social engineering scam of people reaching out with a fake email address to, a salesperson saying, from the perspective of being the president and saying like, hey, I need you to go buy me gift cards. Can you go do that and then they give them and they lose the money. But this was like a very bad version of that. And I remember talking to you about that and you're like, this doesn't make sense. We're like a medium-sized company in Toronto, Canada. Why would these people be targeting us? And I'm like, because there's a chance they're going to get $50,000 on. And
well,
I'm like,
actually, remember we sent one wire. It was the second wire that got it.
No, we drove them both back for sure.
Yeah, but the first one went through, but there was a glitch to it, so it didn't go through.
Yeah.
And then the second one was when they kind of said, "What's going on?"
Very
here?
scary.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what the right balance is, man. We're still trying to figure it out too, because like I'm a pretty open book with my shit. I mean, I'm not as notable as you guys, but like I put family stuff on there. And I like to talk about what we're doing.
Well, yeah, because they're proud family men. But the other thing is too, on my Facebook page is more personal than anything else. So it's just people I know, but the Instagram, even my personal Instagram versus business. So business, I don't put a lot of personal stuff on there, except when I forget to switch accounts.
Always. He says he doesn't. He always posts personal things
By
on the Frameworth
mistake,
account.
though. And then Mikey, I'll get an email from him 2 minutes later saying, "Dad, did you mean to put that baby picture on Frameworth site?" I said, "Oh, no, sorry about that."
Sometimes that personal side, though, on the business page makes sense.
It kind of pops off. People kind of like it.
They're like, oh my God, it's so cute.
Yeah.
My new grandson is 1 year old, and they live in Winnipeg, and so he comes to the office. So they bring him to the office, and I put him in my chair. So the funny thing about my office chair is, for some reason, when celebrities have come in, from Gretzky to Crosby to Eddie Shack,
that's 3 bells.
There's a lot more than that. Whoever comes to the office and they come in the office, and for some reason they sit in the chair. Now I ask them to sit in the chair, but the first 4 or 5 just, hey, let me sit there. And Sidney put his feet up on the desk.
I saw that picture.
So over the years, I've got about 20 of those shots, and then so I put my new grandson in the chair and took a photo. And that one, I think I put on the company thing. I said, a lot of people have sat in the chair, so I put all the other photos there, plus his, and said, a lot of important people have sat in this chair. No more important than this kid.
Very cool.
Yeah.
New sales manager, child labor.
He'll put it past him.
Grab his lunch pail.
No, he's still got 3 years to go.
So on the husband side, so 41 years. What's the key to success with that?
Well, there's a lot of challenges, but knowing your roles and accepting each other's roles, good love life, common things that you like to do, and a lot of give and take. It's just, I don't know that there's any one formula for anyone. It just works for us really well. You get through it. I know you're a big family man, Jamie. I don't know a lot about your background, but I think the family holds it together. Our common denominator is always about family, and COVID was a very, I hate to say this, one of the best periods of our family life and business life was during that time frame, which was the whole world was in upheaval.
Yeah.
But we were up at the cottage, and our bubble was our family. And so when we had a birthday party, it was all themed, right? We did whoever, like my son Chris, he loves Christmas. So in the middle of June, we decorated the cottage with Christmas trees and lights, and that was his theme. Was Coley
That's great.
She was the superhero.
Superheroes.
So we got superhero costumes, and we all dressed up for that. We had more fun because we were just all together all the time.
Yeah.
So I think if you want to keep a family together, or a marriage together, family is probably the most important part.
And then I know you got 2 sons, you got 1 daughter. What's the difference between being a girl dad and a boy dad?
And which one's your favorite?
Yeah, and then if you could just...
I'm going to leave the room for him to answer this one.
Go ahead and
No, he already said it's not you.
Yeah, I know. True.
Rank your children. We got Mikey in 3rd. Go ahead with 2-1. Yeah.
You know what? They're all pretty unique. Chris is so much more like his mother. Laid back, easygoing. He's worked for the company about 3 or 4 times, and he says I fired him each of those times. He just doesn't. He has his own way of doing things. He's laid back, super intelligent guy. He just doesn't have the same intensity and drive that I have, and yet he's worked in various social jobs, like as a waiter and different environments, and people absolutely love him. Great story there. We're at a local restaurant that we go to quite a bit. He works there on the weekends as a waiter. There was one of his favorite clients that comes to the restaurant that was there that night, but we were all having dinner instead. The whole family was there. The bill was significant because there's not anybody in our family except the babies that don't drink. And so
yet. Another couple of years.
Once they start work.
So we had a few bottles of wine and all that. And then all of a sudden, the owner of the restaurant comes over and says, the tab's picked up. I said, what are you talking about? He says, well, Chris's favorite customer over there has picked up the tab. And I went, oh my God, like I can't accept that. And anyways, he insisted. And that's because this guy just loves Chris. Can you imagine picking up an $800 tab because you like the waiter that serves you on a regular basis? So that's Chris's forte. He's bright. But that's his thing. Can we get along as business partners? Not likely. Mikey, he's intricate. He's detailed. So that's his side of things. And my daughter, she's a daughter, and she's loving, she's caring, but she's so tough. She's one of the best bartenders in the country. She's proven that by winning competitions and bartending competitions that actually sent her to France, to the Grey Goose Mansion when she won the one in Montreal, the national competition, and another one she won as a bartender boxing that she signed up for, that they sent her to Mexico.
Sounds like alcohol, the common denominator to keeping the family together.
Well, if you ask, So
Wine,
anyway,
alcohol,
the kids are all great, and they're all unique, and that's what makes everything special.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Well, congrats on having 2 successful children. That's
Chris, you're forgetting about me.
Mikey, I got to put you on the hot seat, man.
Okay.
So my first question for you is, the show's called Shit My Dad Taught Me. Give me the things that your dad has taught you that will resonate forever.
Yeah, I think number one with a bullet, I kind of touched on this before, is that there's always a solution to every problem. It's a weird, almost obsessive knowledge that I have now. And I've been made fun of before, including by my dad and my family, where when I see a problem, I can't not solve it. And it sounds like I'm answering like an interview question of like, what's your biggest negative asset? I'm like, I care too much, but it's not quite that. It does become this element of like a dog with a bone. I think that's something that he instilled in me. My dad did. Whether it's like an issue with, the internet at the cottage or something, and we're supposed to be relaxing, and I'm just like, I know I can solve this. I'm going to find a way. And it kind of came as a result of not only the wisdom that he imparted on me, but almost the opposite of the description that my dad gave of his dad with him in the office. Was his dad didn't want to give him a shot. From a really early age, we kind of joked about it, but my dad was always pushing me into areas that I was uncomfortable. I didn't know how to manage a company. I didn't know how to manage people. I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know how to deal with customers. But I guess it's the kind of feeling of like, throw a baby in a pool and it's just going to learn how to swim before it overthinks it. And every step along the way, whether I succeeded or failed, he would have some wisdom to, again, impart further on me. And that has just built up this set of skills that I'll call them, where I always feel confident if you put a problem in front of me, I'm going to find a way to solve it. There's no question about it. And it could be, a dogged determination. It could be rigidity. I could just be stubborn. And sometimes it comes out negatively because mentally it can be a little draining to look at yourself when something fails and think, what did I do wrong? Because I know I could have found a way to get it done. But I think that's probably the best life lesson that I have. Leaving aside all of those other things that my dad talked about that his dad imparted on him, the treating people with respect. That's like, if you ever go anywhere with my dad, everyone, he talks about my brother in this way, but everyone who my dad talks to comes away with this sense of, well, that was a good guy. Kind of like you leaving the room with Eddie Shack. Like it's my dad just has a way of focusing attention on people and making them feel seen and feel heard. And that's something that when you spend your life growing up and experiencing that, you're like, I want to be that. I see the effect it has on other people, and I want to carry some of that with me for sure.
Except that I'm really bad at remembering names, John. So other than
no
that,
offense taken.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a funny thing, and true story. I am really bad. Like somebody will say, "Hi, I'm so and so," and I don't know what it is, but maybe it's because I'm thinking about how I'm going to address that person. Like 30 seconds later, I can't remember the name. So I had to really concentrate, Jamie, on because when I first met you, because that's the way I am, and that is really embarrassing when you can't remember somebody's name that you just got introduced to. But that's probably because I'm trying to figure out how to address a person, how to make them, what we're going to talk about and all that. But anyway.
So the learning there is, if you know that about yourself, you find a business where you're talking with guys who have their name on their shirt, right? That's
well, we do at the front desk. You got to put a name tag on.
Yeah, right.
Where there's 80 pictures of them. Yeah,
They all have numbers. It's really, it's easy. And to pay you that compliment too, Mikey, like, and I know I put in my notes here, don't fucking compliment Mikey, but the times we've worked together, the skills your dad's talking about, you have in spades, man. The product presentation, understanding what was available, listening to us when we were doing all of like our product demos and stuff. Like we used to nail that. And I remember in the early days, you'd be there in every meeting. And then all of a sudden it was, you'd be there for half the meeting. And then you remember Trevor, this
is my dad you're talking about here.
But you would, and then Trevor would come in and he'd kind of do a sales thing, but you'd be there as well too. And then eventually it was just you. Yes. It was like, I remember thinking, I'm like, I get it.
That was my first, or not my first, but one of my favorite forays into like account management. Like I've done essentially every type of role at the company. This begins in like inventory. My dad would bring photos home for us to count and catalog and hologram and things like that. So I've done a little bit of everything, but that experience with that company when we were working together was something I really enjoyed. It was an element of like camaraderie. It wasn't what I thought sales or account management would be, where it felt like I was at someone's beck and call. It felt more like a partnership. And that was a big light bulb that went off, where if you feel like you're doting on someone, then I think there's something wrong in the chain of command, because I shouldn't have to dote on an account, because everything should kind of be working if you set the system up properly. But with you, I remember we'd get together and I'd always be looking forward to our meetings for product development, for discussing ways in which we could improve upon the operations and the order fulfillment, all that sort of stuff. It was a really good process for me. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and you boys have always looked at those verticals too. Like that was right around the time you guys had that agreement with the HIP. And I remember that was like just before Gord passed, right?
Yes.
So, and then we used to turn out that product that was like, like what you were saying with the record, and it had the discography, and it had the like, that was so cool at the time, man. And I bet a lot of people listening, if they have any Tragically Hip memorabilia that's framed, odds are it says Frameworth on the back of it.
So it's a very good chance. And that's owing a lot to our designers at the company as well. Like an incredibly talented group of people. My dad mentioned Sandra before,
for
but,
sure.
Steve and Ven and Connor who works there now. Like there's a ton of people there who just have so much talent when it comes to designing these items. They really understand the audience, they understand the product line. There's such a unique look and feel to what I would call like a Frameworth product and that aesthetic. And it's kind of set the bar for what, a lot of other companies go for, but that's owing to them. They've got such great vision. Yeah.
Part of it is recognizing what the demand is. Go to what we started when I did design that product for the Blue Jays and the card set that I did for myself. And then figuring out what other people would like. So my office is just, there's not an inch of wall space, and it's all things that appeal to me, and memories and things, or meeting a celebrity. And so when you do that, I've been lucky enough to figure out that if it appeals to me, it probably will appeal to the general public. So when people come into my office, they say, "Oh, you got this photo of so-and-so," or that's a great family photo. I love the way you developed that," or whatever it is. And the record business, so when I realized how big the record designs were, because we're doing them for the gold record thing. And then the companies didn't just do the standard design. They started wanting something a little more elaborate.
Yeah.
And then I said, wow, that's a really cool piece of stuff. People would probably like that kind of thing. So we developed products like that, took them to the Tragically Hip was the first one, yeah, I think it was Tragically Hip.
Rush, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know, it
we
was
did a lot of Rush
yeah.
too. Yeah.
And actually, Rush came to me and said, you know, we see all this product out in the marketplace, and we didn't authorize that. And I said, well, you know the reason why? And they said, why is that? And I said, because you didn't authorize anything, and so
Right.
whatever's out there, whatever the demand is being filled by people that aren't authorized. Why don't you create the product line? We'll do it for you, and you market it. It's been a hugely successful program for us, and that led me to go to Rush, to Tragically Hip, and we're currently going to a number of different bands, and we've now done memorabilia books for Live Nation, we've done 4 YouTube books for their VIP packages,
Yeah,
which are
seen those.
hugely successful, and Madonna. So we keep following up, but it's just recognizing where there's a demand and then filling it.
Yeah. There's some shit your dad taught you right there for anybody listening with a business, right? Like you get so focused on what you do well. What's the thing just outside of that?
Right.
Yeah. You know, and then how do you like test that thing just enough that you're not exposing yourself to risk, but you're testing validity, and your feedback loop is so quick.
Right.
Which is where, like, if you any of our listeners go through Scotiabank, you'll still see your auctions there today, right?
Yeah.
So you guys have these huge tables with, and I see the product is always changing and everything, right? That's so cool for the keeping relevant side. Players get hot, players get cold,
Yeah.
right? Like you got to be super reactive.
That never existed. I mentioned Maple Leaf Gardens when I used to go in and pick up some pictures for Harold Ballard's office, and he'd want something framed, and we'd do that. But I got to know the marketing guy down there, and together we developed things like the auctions. You never saw those in hockey buildings or any sports arena. He was the first one, to my knowledge, that did a silent auction within the building. Became hugely successful,
Sure.
followed by every other sports franchise from New York. And so I went around from team to team and tried to show them how to do all that stuff. And it was a big success. Look what it is now. It's
For sure,
massive,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What would be your craziest story of like somebody that you've met, or a situation that you've had, or a place you've gone that you can talk about on here? That
Oh yeah, I want to hear from both you boys.
yeah, because
Same
you
question
guys must
times
have
two.
some just
Such an
absolute
answer to
rocker
that.
stories.
I think you already know without even.
Go ahead.
I want
do
you to tell
some.
the story about we call him, and this is not a reflective of his personality, but Rick Trash.
This is a long story though, but this was a pretty classic story. My wife actually dubbed the whole episode Rick Trash. So back in the day, my brother had passed away at a young age with cancer,
Yeah, sorry
and
to
I
hear that.
had I decided to do a golf tournament for him, a big celebrity golf tournament. And I never asked favors from any of the players that I dealt with, but in this particular case, I pulled in all the markers. So we had a big golf tournament planned for Eagle's Nest, and even the owner of Eagle's Nest was a friend of the family. So I had everybody there from Bobby Hull to George Chivallo to anybody that Daryl Sittler, and in those days they would just do it. They didn't ask for fees, and for me they would do it anyways because like they always ask me for favors. So I pulled in all the markers, and we had this tournament. And one of my friends, good friend of mine, who is very instrumental in helping me build my business, Brad Jansen. I don't know if you ever met him, but he was with CCM at the time. Good friend. He introduced me to Wayne Gretzky back in the day. Anyway, so we have this thing, and he said, I can bring Rick Nash, who had just signed with Columbus. Okay. So we go, he says, oh, by the way, Rick is going to come, and I'm going to bring him. And he's bought a home in Columbus. And he has all of his jerseys that he's worn since Pee Wee up, and he wants them all framed for his new big basement in his new home. And he said, happy to do it. You know, I wasn't going to do them all for free, but I was going to give him a real good deal. So he comes to the tournament, and he brings this bag of 2 or 3 garbage bags full of jerseys, and he throws them in and put them in the trunk of my car, and I'll take them back to the office the next day. The tournament go back to the office. And when I get back the next day, I said to my foreman, Mono, I said, by the way, there's some jerseys in the garbage bags in the back of my car. Can you bring them, put them in the showroom, and I'll tell you how I want them all framed up. So I guess he was busy that day, or his mind wasn't in it, because he's the best guy I've ever worked with. Besides Mikey.
Wow. No, I agree. To be honest, I agree with him.
And so
It's a rough pod for you, but
the day goes by, and the next morning I wake up about 6 o'clock, and I'm thinking, nobody asked me about those jerseys I wanted framed. Those 3 garbage bags full of jerseys. I said, no, that can't be. And now I'm shitting myself. I hop in the car. I get to work. I'm waiting for everybody to come in. First guy to come in is my general manager, and I said, was Mono. And I said, what happened to those garbage bags full of jerseys that I gave? He said, garbage bags full of. I thought they were garbage. I said, why would I bring garbage back in my trunk of my car from a golf tournament? I don't know. He panicked. I said, where did you put them? He says, I threw them in the trash bin in the back. I went, I just about lost my mind. I almost felt like throwing up. So I wait for my GM to come in, and I said, we got to find out. So we run to the back, we flip up this door, and I look in the bin, and it's empty. They had emptied it the night before, like once a week, but that was the night. So my GM starts phoning around to the garbage company. Where did they take? Oh, they take them to Woodbine and 7. So we get in the car, and we go up. I take a bunch of guys up there because we're going to sift through that garbage and we're going to find it. And he said, oh, no. It just gets dumped here at night. And then it gets shuffled around to various dump sites. And now I got to wait for the management to get through a meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning to find out where they went to. And so when they finally get out of the meeting, I didn't want to tell him what happened, but I had to because he didn't care. And I said, we lost these things, and it's his whole life of every jersey he's ever worn, from his Team Canada, his draft jersey, his Pee-wee jersey, All-Star jersey, everything. He says, there's 3 sites we send it to. One's in Sudbury. That's done. He says, there's one in Detroit. No chance you get. The only one that you might be able to have some luck with is London, Ontario, which is where Rick played his junior. So they phone, and they said, the good thing about garbage companies, they know exactly what segment they're dumping in at that day. So they go over to that segment, and they happen to find one jersey sitting on top of the pile. I said, stop. I'll pay whatever it takes. Stop dumping there. I get like 2 car full of guys, and we go down. I get them driving down and I got a brand new BMW at the time. I don't let the kids eat McDonald's in there. And now I got these guys going to a dump. Anyways, we go down, I stop at a Walmart. We get all the work boots and helmets that we might need to get on the site. And we get there. And our oldest son, Chris, he's working in the plant, and he's bored stiff. He's, just in high school or something. So he's happy to be there, get out of the plant and help dig for these things. We get in. It's the hottest day of the year. It's
on record in Toronto.
July long weekend. Yeah. Friday of the long weekend. We get onto the site, and there's this mountain of garbage that we have to climb up. Chris gets out of the car, and he throws up. The smell is so bad. I got all these guys on this thing, and we start digging through the garbage, and we find one here and one there and one there. And after about 3 hours, we can't find any more. And there's a thunderstorm coming in. So they tell us, you got to get off the site. I go, we've got 11 jerseys. There's 2 or 3 garbage bags full of jerseys that I said, can't be them all, but that's as best we can't find anymore. Right. So I get the guys all back in my brand new BMW, and they just reek, and they hadn't eaten all day. So now I got to stop and get McDonald's and the garbage smell in my car. And on the way back, I phoned a friend of mine, Bill Foley, and I said, he owned 3 Parker Cleaners. And I said, Bill, I need a favor. I got these jerseys. They got stains on them. I said, you got to get them out. So I go straight back to his place with the jerseys. And he says, Brian, they might have to do these by hand. I said, whatever it takes. I'll pay you whatever it takes. Anyways, I'm still distraught. Nothing else I can do. Next day, I have a golf game at 8 a.m. I'm through the golf, through the 9. For some reason, I pick up my cell phone, which I never did on the golf course. And I see a message from Mono, my foreman, the guy that actually threw these in, who's now my partner. And so I phoned him, and I said, what's up? And he says, well, I got good news. I said, where are you? He says, well, I'm back at the site in London. I said, what do you mean you're back at the site in London? He says, well, I got a bunch of guys and we went back to see if we could find some more. And we found 9 more jerseys.
Whoa.
9 or 10. I went, you did what? And he says, yeah, I arranged and we went back. He felt so bad. This is the kind of guy this guy is. And we got them all back. So I don't know how many were in the bag because Rick had gone to his 21st birthday. He went to Vegas to party. And I phoned my buddy Brad at the beginning and I told him the story. He says, you get those fucking jerseys right back right now. He says, I'll kill you. I just signed a stick deal with the guy and he's going to blow it. He was freaking out. So we get the jerseys back. So he brings when he didn't tell Rick anything. So Rick comes into the office about a week later. I had all the jerseys framed up around the showroom. I don't know how many were missing. And I get him in my office. I tell him the story. Okay. And I said, Rick, this is a story. And I just see this blank look on his face. I don't know whether he's jumping across the table to hit me or he's just sitting there. And I said, I got some good news and some bad news. I said, the good news is all the framing is on me. And Mono this is before I even told him his story. And Mono is going to come to Columbus and he's going to hang all the pictures perfectly in your house. Oh, you don't need to do that. I said, you're probably going to think we do. So I said, let's go into the showroom after I told him the story and see what's missing. And he went around the showroom and he says, Brian, he says, there's one jersey missing. And it was one I was deciding whether to even frame or not. Oh. I don't know whether he was just being nice. He says, I can't believe you went to all that trouble to, this story is a long story. It could go on for another hour, all the details in between. Rick got all his jerseys framed up and all the stains were out. And there was even one jersey that was ripped, but I replaced it with the cord elements of it and but that was one of the most horrendous. You want a story? That was one of them. But
he's such a good dude too.
Oh, yeah,
I partied at his
great
cottage
guy
with him up north.
Classy guy, and his parents. We got to know them.
The one element that you kind of skip past that I find telling in this story is prior to going out to the dump, we called our insurance company to see if we were covered for this, and they're like, no, like you could lose the business over this because how do you put a price tag on? For sure. A star athlete, all of his personal collection. So that was a little bit to add some fuel to the fire. Yeah.
Oh, I was beside myself. I could have lost the company over that. Crazy. So that was one. And there's lots of those stories, and Mikey's been there for a lot of them. But yeah.
Try and call Waste Management nowadays and get them to stop production and stop.
Oh, not going to happen.
No fucking chance.
Yeah, not going to happen.
1990. I don't know when it was, but it was. For the big difference between then and now, and all the things that have happened in between.
People gave a shit back then.
Yeah.
And then what about like in-game stories? And maybe I'll ask you this one too, Mikey, because I've seen so many. I mean, I've seen you drinking out of the cup. So like, what's a really good in-game story?
So my favorite in-game story, like I said, we were a Penguins household for quite a while, following Sid, especially prior to them winning their first cup, or Sid winning his first cup. We would occasionally go down to Pittsburgh to watch some of the playoff games, and we were this would have been after they won the cup, but we were still very heavily invested in them. Obviously, they were playing Philadelphia in one of the wildest series I ever remember. It was like Pittsburgh would go up 5 goals, and then Philly would come back, and then
the whole series.
With the whole series. Yeah. There was like a 10-0 game and an 11-1 game. We were at one game where it was looking like Pittsburgh was on the outs, and we're like, we gotta go support our boys. Let's go do this. And my dad, going to games has always been so reserved. It's like, don't wear the jersey of a player because you don't know if you're going to run into the other another player's parents or something like that. So
you can always wear a Crosby jersey, but you're not going to wear a Malkin jersey if you meet Sidney. Sidney was our guy.
Yeah. Right. So even to this day, if I go to a game, I'll wear the colors, but I won't even really wear the jersey. Just you never know who you're going to run into. But at this game, I had never really seen my dad let loose in this way. We were drinking all day, and Brizgalov was the goalie, and we were sitting right behind his net. And my dad was on another level. Like, he was on a tear. He started out like kind of calm, and he's just like, Brizgalov lets in a soft goal and my dad's chirping him. He's like, "Oh, you're Swiss cheese, Brizgalov, like piece of shit," like all this stuff. But then he starts to get amped up more and more because the crowd's kind of like feeding into it and he's drinking a bit more. By the end of the game, he's amping up the crowd, doing like a WWE wrestler, like amping up the crowd. He's walking up and down the aisles. He's like, "Fuck you, Brizgalov, you piece of shit."
That damn American beer, man.
Yeah, 100%. It was. I've never seen my dad like that. A or B, especially not at a hockey game. And this is my honest opinion. Brizgalov's career was never the same after that game, ever.
And that would have been in the igloo.
Literally,
and the igloo atmosphere was crazy.
Yeah, you could hear everything.
Yeah, he was looking over his shoulder. It's like, well, who the hell is that guy?
0% chance he didn't hear every word my dad said.
Now, keep in mind, I had my 2 sons there, my daughter and wife as well, but they're big boys. So there was a guy that was a Philly fan behind us. And so he would stand up and start yelling, "Sit the fuck down." And I'm never like that. Like when we go to games, I say, "Guys, keep it down." People know who we are. We don't want to, whatever. We got to be respectful. I don't know what got into me, but so I'm telling this guy, and there was another guy that had a "fuck Philly" jersey on. So I'm pointing at him. "Yeah, fuck Philly." Anyway, it was great. That was the worst. That was it.
I love going down there.
But the other, I think the one family thing that was the coolest, I've done, been fortunate enough to be in the dressing room after they won the cup in San Jose. But the one, when Team Canada
World
played
Cup of Hockey,
World Cup of Hockey 2016, and we were there with the Crosbys and the, I think the McKinnons.
No, Nate was on the North America All-Star team.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So no, Jonathan Taves' parents.
Right. Yeah.
Is one of our clients.
Shots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're all sitting there together, and they win that night. So we go.
Game. Yeah.
So we don't have wristbands. The parents do. And Andre Gilbert was Jonathan's mom. "You're coming with us to the after party." And we said, "Well, can't do the after party. Is like we don't have wristbands. You're coming with us. We'll get you in." So we go to it's in the Air Canada Center at the time. So it's down below at the Platinum Lounge. There's a big bar there. So we're down there partying. And
the locker room starts.
Well, first the
bar.
Yeah. Were you?
I was there.
Yeah. So we went to the Platinum Lounge first. The players all came in there. We had photos with everybody. And then they shut that place down. It was like 1:00. So okay, well, this is great. One of the players of the family said, "No, the dressing room still got beer in it." So off we go to the dressing room. And Andre's or Jonathan's mom said, "Bring some cigars in case." So didn't even think about it. So I brought some Cubans down there, and we go into the dressing room, and then give me a cigar. So forgot that we're inside. We're not allowed to be smoking cigars, and we're in the dressing room, and the champagne's spraying, and the party is going, and my whole family's in there with me.
Fucking
like
awesome.
The kids and the players of this team. And then Babcock was the coach, and he sees somebody with a cigar. "Hey, can I have one?" Before you know it, all the cigars were gone. Everybody's smoking cigars in the dressing room, partying till about 3:30 in the morning. It was crazy. So those kind of experiences you just don't get.
It's
right?
so good, man.
Yeah. That was one of the coolest experiences of my sporting viewership career, as I call it. Yeah.
Yeah. Fun times.
Miles is going to have his work cut out on that story. I was trying to ring the bell every time there was a name that came up. That's going to be heavy editing. Tell me about Frameworth today and Frameworth tomorrow. Like, what are you guys excited about? What you got on the horizon?
I think I'd be most excited about our shift to a more customer-centric perspective. We've been very much, my dad talked about all the corporate sponsorships that we would do in the past and focus more on kind of the bigger orders to either big box retailers or to, some of the beer companies and things like that. But we've got an amazing team right now that's hyper focused on e-commerce. As a result of COVID, like every single company had to focus more towards e-commerce because that was the only thing available to us. And we've leaned on that quite heavily. And it's put us in touch, kind of, leaning on the story that my dad talked about, the guy who comes in who used to spend, $500 and you still remember them. It really puts you in touch with the collectors themselves. You have your finger on the pulse a lot more with what it is that they want. And I think that's allowed us to expand our product line in much more unique ways. borrowing from some companies that focus on some of the rarity of smaller sequences of items as opposed to one generic signed photo that goes to everyone. I think our whole branding has just shifted and branched out quite a bit. We're excited to be able to build on that and build a better line for our players. We're used to being, it sounds like we're kind of tooting our own horn here, but we're used to being at the forefront of sports memorabilia and sports marketing. That's how we started. And I think for a while we just got honestly a little bit comfortable, and we're kind of finding new ways now to branch out and to get ourselves back to what we consider to be the top. Yeah.
The whole industry has changed so dramatically. I mean, at the beginning, I would say that this whole fan cave type of situation, we were right there. We're probably the first, because of my picture frame background, making memorabilia look sexy, that would be acceptable to put not only in homes and basements, but in offices, et cetera, et cetera. And so companies like Upper Deck or back in the day Steiner, they didn't really have any, they do, cheap black frame or just sell, cards or whatever. So we created this look with the jerseys, et cetera. And we were always, as Mikey said, at the forefront. In the last 2 or 3 years, during COVID, we had very good years because of some of the work that Mikey has done with some of our big corporate clients. But we became a little complacent because we were just kind of riding the wave and having a good time with it. During that time, in 10, 15 years ago, like companies like Fanatics didn't even exist. They just came in and just started owning everything, throwing money around. And so a lot of the players accepted the big checks and moved over. We had, 20 exclusive clients, and a lot of the agents felt that there was more money moving the players to companies like Fanatics that would throw big money at them.
And throw in all the fraud companies now. Like, there's so many fraudulent companies that, like, one of the guys posted in the dad's group the other day a fucking Gretzky jersey that, like, anybody that looked at the signature on it, and like it's like sitting on a hanger, like half mangled, and the guy's like, oh, like I'm looking to get $500 for this, and here's the authenticity card, and it's like a company nobody's ever heard of,
right?
And guys were calling it out. They're like, man, like there's nothing legitimate about this at all. And he's like, yeah, but I paid like $400 or $500 for this.
Buyer beware. Yeah.
Well, Mikey's working with the NHL now to try and get them to kind of focus in on some of this stuff, because it's, they do, but nowhere near what they could. And it is like whack-a-mole, you get a fake company on Instagram, you shut them down, and the next day they're open on a different name, et cetera. So it's a difficult part of the business. And then you have authenticating companies that really, in my mind, in many ways, are good and bad for the industry. They're good in the sense that, somebody can get something signed in the street and they'll authenticate it, and that keeps that, grassroots industry going. But on the other hand, I don't know that they're that qualified to authenticate anything. Like, what are they, handwriting experts? Not really,
for sure.
Or, maybe for the high end stuff. So there's so much fake stuff in there. So all I just say is, look, if Sidney Crosby's with Frameworth his whole career, then make sure you got a Frameworth certificate with it. And if it's Wayne Gretzky, then you either got a Frameworth, Upper Deck, or a WGA certificate. Those you can count on. Anything else you want to buy and sell off eBay with somebody else's certificate, let the buyer beware.
For sure.
Yeah. We got a little segment on the show where we ask our guests to bring in dad jokes.
Yeah.
We're hoping you brought 2.
Yeah. I think my dad's got one. He's written down.
I got to read it because
Brian's like, I actually brought my dad joke with me.
You go ahead, Mikey.
So I have 2 myself. One of them, I'm going to call it a mom joke, if that's okay. Can we change it a little?
Yeah.
So it doesn't follow the structure of a dad joke, but it involves a mom. Is this okay?
Let's go.
Okay. So there's a mother. She's driving her son to school, and she's in the car. Kid's in the back seat. She merges onto the highway, and as she does, a truck kind of cuts her off in front of her, and she sees that this truck is kind of got a decal of like a stag shop. It's it's got like a sex store. And she's kind of sweating a little bit. She's like, well, I'm not ready to explain this to my kid in the back. Hopefully nothing happens. This is fine. She's kind of white knuckling it a little bit. All of a sudden they're going, nothing going wrong. Kid's quiet in the back seat. The truck in front of them hits a speed bump. and something flies out of the back of the truck, and it's a dildo, smacks the windshield and flies off. And she's like, oh my God, like how am I going to explain something like this to my kid? She kind of looks back, kid's kind of quiet, looking around, like, what just happened there? And she's like, okay, like white knuckling the steering wheel a little bit more. And a couple seconds goes by, and the kid says, Mom, what just hit the windshield? And the mom's like rolling her eyes. Oh my God. Yeah, that was it was a bug. I think a bug just hit the windshield. And the kid says, oh, okay. Mom's kind of like sweating a little bit. She's like, I think I just saved the day there. Finally, the kid pipes back up and says, Mom, that bug had a huge cock.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, I got to read this one, but this is a more typical dad joke because these are the corny ones that I always
keep in mind. I'm not a dad, so I'm not qualified to tell the traditional structure of one.
I bought a secondhand time machine next Sunday. They don't make them like they're going to anymore.
Yeah, that is your typical dad joke.
I like that.
That's good. That's good. All the gambit. What else you boys want to?
He's got a number 2 one. He's got a second one.
This is one that I
ahead,
actually use. I like to say this. I'm a new uncle, and my brother's partner has a daughter as well. So that's kind of my foray into dad jokes and stuff. And the one joke that I love to say in that context is, what's the difference between a monkey and a bicycle? They both climb trees except for the bicycle.
Yeah, so that's it.
Ladies, he's not single for a reason.
I got good jokes where that came from, but it's the confusion that it gives to the kid. She's like, well, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, no, it does. There's nothing alike. I'm like, I know. Well, they are alike, except the bicycle doesn't climb trees. She's like, well, I know, but yeah, I like that.
We really like the ones where you got to explain it too. Yeah. That's the best.
Those are the ones that go viral.
Yeah.
What's anything else you boys want to talk about? Anything else you're excited about? Any plugs? Any? Are you still doing one of the podcasts?
No, I had 3 podcasts for a while. You can still find the back catalogs. There's the Retrograde, a video game podcast. There's Jackass to Jackass podcast, which is exactly what it sounds like. We used to go back and review all the old episodes of Jackass. That was weirdly the most successful one, in spite of the fact that on the 3rd podcast, the Sign Off, a Frameworth podcast, we used to have guests like, get ready with the name drop bell, Doug Gilmore, Daryl Sittler, Rick Vive. We had a bunch of agents and managers in hockey. It was more of a peer into the realm of sports memorabilia and sports marketing. So if you liked any of the stories that my dad told on this podcast, you might want to check that out. Not recording new episodes, but we had some fun with it.
Well, we're going to actually, I've got a guy cutting those up into little segments that we're going to post on our Frameworth Instagram. So follow us on Frameworth Sport. That's great. Every 500 followers, I give away something really nice. So we're building that following up. So it's fun.
Do you guys have any charity stuff coming up or anything that people can get involved in or help out with?
Charities, we usually get involved with other people's charities. So we did like the Joe Carter Classic recently, which raises a ton of money. We took on their auctions and did some of their gifting and provided some items for the auctions themselves. But we don't really run the charity events as much. I think as a fulfillment company, having the stuff that we have is usually exactly.
Well,
so we do get involved with a lot
actually.
of that.
I'm right now working with Sidney Crosby's foundation and his parents. They run the foundation. I've just got a few ideas that we're doing. And Sidney actually recently saw an artist that he really liked in Pittsburgh. So we commissioned her to do a painting, which we're going to auction off. And then there'll be a limited edition giclée of that as well, that he's going to raise money for the foundation. So follow the 87 Foundation, I think it is, for Sidney Crosby. He's really going to start ramping it up, but Sidney is so ultra focused on his hockey career still. So he's trying to get the foundation up and running, but until he retires, it won't be as big as it will when he does. So keep an eye on that. We're going to try and have a hand in that and help out wherever we can.
Can we also say what I'd like to offer is, our website, frameworth.com. We've talked about some of the music memorabilia, some of the sports memorabilia that's there. There's always some sales going on, but it might be nice to offer like a 35% off discount to any listeners of the podcast if you use code DADDY. DADDY. Can we do that?
Perfect. That'd be awesome.
Use code DADDY. We'll have that live for up until a few months of the summer at least. So go over there and check that out.
Yeah, actually, Mikey just did his first radio commercial. That is going to be airing on the Fan and 680. He just He recorded those yesterday. We'll make Mikey, because he's so smooth, we'll make him the big celebrity face of Frameworth.
There you go.
That's what I'm looking for the future. Just trying to set the company up so I can spend more time traveling.
Mikey, the
less
face
time
for
in the
radio.
office.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, been
Face of
podcasting
the
for
company
too
on
long.
radio.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's great. Well, boys, big fan of everything you do. It's been
Thanks.
nice to
Pleasure being here,
Yeah,
guys.
continue to know you guys and continue to watch. It's real cool what you guys are doing. So, and thank you for taking the time out of your day and sharing
Couple
some
schmucks
stories.
like us.
Thanks
Yeah.
for having us.
No, this has been a lot of fun.